Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Mike Hanver. I'm Director of Business Development here at Webolutions. With me is my colleague, Jack Schneider. Say hello to the folks, Jack. Hello to the folks, Jack. Burns and Alley, eat your heart out. There we go. All right. We did not do a lot of rehearsing for this, but that part we did. So thank you for joining us today. The webinar topic today is growing sales by differentiating your brand experience on your website. A little bit of housekeeping, perhaps, baseline information to get us rolling about Webolutions. We're meeting some of you for the first time, and thank you so much for joining us. We are in our 25th year of website design, development, and digital marketing. We're ranked every year as a top website development firm by the Denver Business Journal, best SEO company in the U.S. in 2019 and 2018. Ranked there by Fit Small Business and 10 SEOs. We've been doing this since 1994, and in that time, we've created more than 2,000 websites. Awards include the 2018 Communicators Award of Excellence, arguably the highest award available to smaller agencies in our industry. And our purpose is to help passionate people thrive. If you're passionate and you're a person, you're in the right place. And thank you for joining us today to talk about how to differentiate your brand experience. Just a little bit about me very quickly. This is what I do. I've been with Webolutions since 2010. I ran the online marketing department for 5 years before moving into my current role as Director of Business Development. I do have an executive MBA from the Daniels College of Business at the University of Denver, and I'm inbound marketing certified. That's enough about me. We've got a lot to cover today, and I do appreciate you joining us. So let's rock. The first thing we want to talk about, y'all, is, the housekeeping. While we're here, I want to encourage everybody, as you have questions, as they come up through during the webinar, chat them to me. There's a chat function, and just shoot us any questions that you have. If you're having any technical difficulties with the webinar, let us know. Jack will help you with that. And if you have any questions about the subject matter, we'll speak to those as well. We do have a lot to cover. It's kind of more than 5 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag, but we do believe that we can cover a lot. I have timed out the webinar to where we will be able to pause for questions, and the first one of those hits, timing it out about 30 minutes in. And I see we're already getting stuff, so that's great. That's great. And Jack, I'll just let you handle that while I focus on the presentation. So thank you very much. Let's talk about the evolution of your messaging. Let's see, what am I going to ask you to do? I'm going to ask you to in another window or another tab or another screen, pull up your home page of your website and just kind of have that there. I'm going to take you through some stuff and through some things and ask you to look at your website against these, and then I'm going to put a little poll out there and ask you to respond to the poll, and we'll see how everybody feels about the questions that we're asking. This is we're going to use something that most people love, coffee. It's certainly the fuel that powers the Webolutions team around here, and it's an easy way to talk about how how messaging evolves. Coffee. If I wanted to get coffee for as cheap as I possibly could, and it was my objective to get it at the lowest possible price, I could take myself down to the spot market. I could buy raw green coffee beans, a bag of raw green coffee beans, and I could take them home. I could roast them up. I could grind them, and I could make coffee. And I don't know how much time that would take me because I've never done that. But you did the math on how much that cost at a commodity level. Coffee costs a little over $1.50 a pound. Not bad, right? Except that it takes time and nobody knows how to do it. And somebody came along and said, you don't have to buy it at the commodity level. I am growing beans. I have selected the best beans. I'm going to roast the beans. I'll grind them up. I'll put them in a resealable container, a little scoop in there. And I'm going to put them on a grocery store shelf just a few blocks from your house. You don't have to you don't have to go do all that stuff. You can just buy the product and take it home and make coffee. And for the value that I've added there and the time that I've saved you, I'm not going to charge you $1.50 a pound. I'm going to charge you $5, $6, $7, $8 a pound, depending on how uppity you are about your coffee. Is that cool? Everybody says, yeah, I'll do that. That's much more convenient. I'll pay a few bucks more to get my weekend back and to not have to learn how to make coffee from scratch, right? Well, then somebody comes along and says, you don't actually have to make the coffee yourself. If you stop by my diner on the way into work and you keep your ceramic mug upright between the table and the floor, I will will have a server make sure that your cup is full of delicious brown bitter liquid for as long as you stay with me. And I will put cream and sugar on the table so you can personalize it to your liking. And now, instead of charging you a product price, I'm going to charge you a service price, right? And if you're ever sitting at the diner at Perkins or Denny's or anything like that, I would encourage you not to do the math on what you're paying for coffee per pound, because it's $80 per pound. When we ask this question here at Webolutions, we say, well, how much does coffee cost? We get a range of different answers: $1.50, $2, $3, and they're all correct. But the point is that there's a lot of price elasticity there, and you're not thinking about that, right? Because what's being brought to you is not the product, it's the service, and so you pay a premium for that. So maybe your website presents you as a commodity, maybe your website presents you as a product, maybe it presents you as a service, and maybe it's presenting you as an experience. So coffee, we're using Starbucks here as an example. Coffee, when Starbucks launched, when Howard Schultz bought Starbucks from his business partner and launched it, coffee consumption has been on the decline in the U.S. for several years. The average cost of a cup of coffee was 50 cents. And if you remember back to that time, coffee was a morning drink. It was something that by the time 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning came around, the coffee urn was put away, it was washed out, ready for tomorrow, and if you needed an afternoon pick-me-up, you were probably grabbing a soda. And Starbucks changed everything about that by not presenting themselves as a commodity or a product or a service, but as an experience, right? They have their card, their club, their whole Pay It Forward program, their unique vocabulary. You don't order a large coffee at Starbucks. You get a grande Americana, upside down, double shot.
No foam.
No foam, good
Yeah.
one, yeah. You know, it takes you a while to order one of those, but it's to your liking, it's your thing, and it grabs personal ownership of it. And Starbucks stands for things, right? So they have done some things that when you walk around with that paper cup, it no longer says I drink coffee. It may be something like where you have a Pay It Forward experience. Now it says I feel good about this is something nice that I do for myself, or I believe in doing nice things for other people. And they have created an experience around their brands, cool colors, right? The smells that they intentionally do that. I don't get my coffee from a server or a clerk. It gets handcrafted for me by a barista, et cetera, et cetera. There's all these things that they've done to craft an experience around their brand, putting your name on it, the knowing nod when it's a repeat customer, where they nod and they say the usual, and off you go through the line. And so they created an experience. $19 or $20 billion in sales per year, it seems to be working. So as you look at your website right now, if you go take this as a framework and look over at your website, look at your homepage, this is the first thing that people are seeing when they find you online. And ask yourself, I'll just launch this poll, here we go. When you look at your website, what stage of evolution does it convey? Is it a commodity? Is it a product? Is it a service? Is it an experience? Go ahead and let us know. What's your first impression? There are no wrong answers. We're just getting a sense of what we got here. And we'll come back to this in just a moment. While you're thinking about that, I want to give you another little piece of the pie here and explain to you what some of the background information, this is kind of where we're coming from in this webinar. So we present these recommendations and these systems and these processes. This is what we call our big marketing method here at Webolutions, and it's illustrated by this hierarchy, this effective marketing hierarchy. What you see around the bubbles on the outside are the things that we really specialize in. And if you look at this from a foundation going up, it's pretty much the way that we approach these things that we think everybody should. First of all, you got to define your organizational beliefs, what you stand for. Any of you who joined us for our webinar last month on thought leadership have heard all this before, so I'll be brief. What is a brand? Okay, we're going to talk about a brand experience on your website. Let's define what a brand is. A brand is a memory bank that is created over time. It is an individual relationship between a person and an organization or a product or okay, or a service or a company. And so and successful brands create positive associations between what they stand for and moments of happiness in people's lives. Hershey's does not show you anymore on their TV commercials how delicious the chocolate looks when they mix it up. They put tender moments about how a mom is able to draw her angst-ridden teenage daughter out of a room to talk about how mean a boy is moments with a little bit of Hershey's chocolate. Coca-Cola, the world's number one consumer product, is another great example of this. They don't say, here's our cool looking can with delicious sugar water, please buy our delicious sugar water. They give you Santa Claus and polar bears, and they sponsor Olympic athletes. They let you know that they do that, and they generate an emotional connection between something that's larger than their product, larger than their market offering, and they connect with you on an emotional level. We'll talk a lot about that today. Then we'll talk a lot about this next phase too, the next step, which is to establish effective positioning. We need to own something in the marketplace, right? If we are saying we also sell that, or we also do that, and we're operating on messaging points that everybody else can say, well, we're competing on price. It's very difficult to make it forward in that. I mean, there are models that seem to work. Walmart's one, but unless you can become Walmart, it's difficult to compete on price, and so we try not to do that. We try to establish a market position that says, hey, we own this. We are the only place you can get this. We're the only people you should talk to because, and to establish that unique, clear market positioning and own that in the marketplace. Why am I talking about that? Because that's what goes on your website. It is a big component of that. And then very quickly, the rest of these things, we identify key measures. What are relevant performance metrics you're going to want that website to produce for you? You're going to want it to produce results. Well, what are those results that you need to track, and what are the leading key performance indicators, the leading metrics that will lead to the result? How can we track those through? Inspiring engagement, we can build the most delicate and elegant brand plan and brand strategy, and if from CEO to CSR, everybody doesn't know what their role in delivering the brand promise is, it breaks. So let's make sure everybody gets on board and understands what the message is, how they live that brand, and convey that message every day. Mastering communications, you cannot be everywhere. Where should you be? What should you be when you get there? And to achieve your specific goals. And then systematically improving and measuring success. The world is going to change. We'll talk a little bit about that today. The tools are going to change. The systems are going to change. How do we stay on top of things? All right. Let's make sure that we have for example, your website. You're going to build a website. Is it going to last forever? Probably not. And we'll talk about why that is. As we move, okay, let's go back and see what the poll said. Let's go back and see. Okay, it looks like everybody's responded. That's great. We have 3 people, awesome, that say that they are conveying an experience with their website. Hey, you guys especially, if you would send us your URL, your web address via the chat function, we'd love to take a look at those, and we'll take a look, and we might include that in some of the in one of the emails that we'll have following up the webinar. Jack's going to follow up. We'll follow up after the webinar and make sure that everybody has a recording of the webinar. We're going to make an offer later. We'll make sure you have that, and some other information, some other resources that we'll reference today throughout the webinar, and we'll make sure you have access to that. We'll include this. Well, anything that you send us, we'll take a look, and if you'd like, we'll be glad to share that with everybody. Three folks are seeing service. You know, that's not a wrong answer. I mean, these are things. These are and a 14% lower number is looking at and say, hey, we see a product. Okay. So as I said, there's not a wrong answer to this necessarily. Thank you all very much for jumping in on that. And participating lets us know who's there and where you are, and I can kind of formulate on the fly who I'm talking to and what information might be most beneficial to you. But again, these are decisions that you make about how you want to present yourself. All right. So we're going to move now into keys to successfully telling your story. Jack, keep me honest on time. Yeah. And when I get to the point here where I said we'd take questions, let's make sure that we do that. Okay. Sure. All right. We're trying not to be overly formal here, obviously. So we don't have an overly formal feel. So if you joined us last month, you heard us talk a lot about story brand, so I won't belabor it because we are going to also make sure in our follow-on from this webinar that you have a link to last month's recording, and so but this comes from a Hollywood screenwriter. His name's Donald Miller. He's a very nice guy. I've met him. And it takes you through the evolution of your story, or how you tell a story. And the trick to this is this that you're seeing here on the slide is it's the plot, it's the formula of seen. Why did they follow this formula? Because it works, because they figured out how the brain works, and shortly we are wired for story, and I'll tell you why. And it's the reason this gizmo on the right, excuse me, how that thing works. And I really think that, speaking as a former university instructor, I really think that there are university courses in marketing that could probably be condensed down to this slide. In marketing and sales, what we want to do is we want to get to the decision maker. So who's the decision maker? It's a little part of your brain inside the limbic brain that is your emotional or feeling brain, and it has 100% of your decision-making capacity. We are humans. We are animals, and we do everything for because it feels good. That's why we smoke. That's why we work out. It's for the reward that we get. So if any of y'all have ever seen Simon Sinek's talk about Start With Why, his TED Talk, or read his book, and he does the golden circle, and he talks about the cross-section of the human brain, this is what he's referencing. If you want to get one step deeper into the science of it, this is how this works. Our brain has three layers. Our oldest part of the brain, our reptilian brain, instinctual dinosaur. This is where breathing comes from. Our involuntary reflexes like blinking and so forth are controlled by our reptilian brain. Our neocortex, what we used to call the left brain, right? This is math and science, and it does all of our logic and our abstract thoughts and that kind of thinking. But it has no capacity for decision making. That gut feeling that you get when you know something's wrong or when you know something's right, but you can't put it in. That's your limbic brain at work. And it knows things that it is unable to communicate in real time to your subconscious. You can't quite formulate those things, but it knows. And so that's your gut telling you to follow and to trust your gut. That's what it's telling you is to trust your gut. So one of the main functions it does is it decides trust and loyalty. Do I trust this? And that becomes important because, and I apologize if I mention this again, when people arrive at your website, the limbic brain is making a decision in 6 seconds or less about whether or not it likes it, okay? And 61% of that is based on color and imagery alone. And so I'll go take you through the process about how we decide what color and imagery goes to differentiate your brand experience on your website. It's so important to that brain, okay? I'm going to talk now about that second tier in the marketing hierarchy, the market positioning. We call it clear market positioning. And one of the first things that we do in market positioning is we identify target personas. So what's a target persona? This is, I'm going to come full here for just a second. I know I'm not. I'm going to just close that out and go here. Okay. So a lot of times we get, hey, we know who we're marketing to. Here's our demographics. And demographics are important as a baseline. Start understanding to whom you're marketing. Here's where it falls down. None of us have ever made a purchase decision because we belong to a demographic. If you target me as a demographic, you miss me, no matter who I am. My marital status, my age, my income level may influence what I can buy and how I look at things, but I don't make decisions based upon that, and neither do you. It's one of those. It's a leader, but it doesn't take us all the way through the decision-making process. If we're going to differentiate our brand experience on the website, we need to understand demographics and what prompts this person to care suddenly about what you have to say. You didn't just start doing business today. You've been in business for a while. You've had your organization going for a while. This person has been out there. They didn't just suddenly find a wallet, but something has changed in their lives to where they now need something that you offer, or something that they believe that you offer, a product, a service, an experience, whatever that is. They're looking at you or looking around for a solution, and they may be somewhere along what we call the buyer's journey. But we need to understand what is it that prompts them to be asking their friends about a solution, or going to Google and asking Google, or saying, hey, Alexa, how do I? In my experience, getting the recommendations from Alexa is kind of fairly middling. What questions do they have about you, about your product or your service? Now, if you've been in business, you probably already know this, right? You probably already have something in mind about, well, my target personas. If I had 5, 10, 100 of these people, I could grow by retention. I could maintain. I could grow by referral. These people bring me business, and if we could focus on those, well, then we'll grow faster. We'll take a lot of the pressure off of the upfront advertising, which is probably a little weird to hear from a digital marketing agency, but yeah, that's how we think, and I think it's important to maximize the return on the investment that you make in generating that first relationship. So what questions do you have, are they having, that you can preempt and assume that they have? This is information that's going to go on your website. We'll talk a little bit about, we'll talk very specifically about how that manifests in your website to create that brand experience. Your primary message is to convey. What do people need to understand about you? It's probably something about what you believe in, probably something about what you stand for. And they also need to know what you offer, right? Pretty quickly, right? In a few seconds or less. Are these people, do they offer what I'm looking for? So let's get that out there. What else do they need to understand? At what point in the journey? What information does our website and potentially other communications vehicles need to convey? What challenges do you believe you will experience in communicating with this person? Are they busy? Do they not have time? Do they not have a great deal of digital savvy? Are they whatever it is? Do they not understand? Do we have a complicated product we're going to need to explain to them? Is our product disruptive and approach things in a different way than they might have seen before? Whatever those are, let's get them up front and understand what our prospective customer needs to understand about us and what challenges we're going to have to overcome in order to communicate effectively with them to the degree that we need to. And we want to boil this down to a unique selling proposition, or a USP, something that is clear and compelling and speaks to that particular target persona. Now, sometimes you have multiple personas, and usually when you do a market positioning exercise, you limit it to 3, no more than 4. You get a little spread out after that. And often we do these, and we find that an incoming assumption is that I'm going to have 3 different personas, and they all want different stuff, and the selling proposition is 3 different things. And you look at it and you say, actually, you're right, these are different people, but the USP is often the same. I'll give you an example. We work with a specialty grocer here in town, here in Denver, and they've got multiple branches. One is in a very affluent area of town, and one is more in an area of town that is, let's say, not affluent. But they are a specialty grocer. Everything's very good for you. Everything's homegrown or local. It's specialty, as I say, and it's kind of a luxury item. And so given the vast difference in income levels, the assumption going in by the client, which is where we get all this, right? You work with a firm like ours, we're never going to know your business as well as you are. So ongoing communication and upfront and as much information as we can share with you becomes important. But the assumption that gets brought is that there are different reasons for this. And it turned out that whether you were you didn't make a lot of money, or whether you had a lot of money, the reason you were shopping at this grocer was for the same reason. I got to put good stuff on the table for my family that I feel good about. All right, and we built a USP that spoke to those people and built the website in part around that USP. What else we built the website around? Next step in market positioning is to do competitive analysis. We talk about unique selling proposition. We talk about owning something in the marketplace. We want to be the only something that somethings. And that's what comes, one of the things comes out of it. So if we want to be unique, we want to do competitive analysis. We want to know what our competitors are doing. We start with a digital matrix or a baseline, major factors that we can look at that might uncover some information and tell us what holes to dig deeper down. And it is a matrix. It gives factors that we'll look at the number of competitors that you probably provided or that we've uncovered. And often the goal, search engine optimization is a good way to talk about this. It's not the only way this gets applied. But what are they doing? Is it their inbound link profile? Is it their content? Is the way their website built? Why are they beating us? Or why have they risen recently? What's the trend? What's changed? And how are they getting there? And so we understand all these things. We also take a look at their messaging, right? And how they are positioning themselves in the marketplace. Again, for the development of USP, and also we're going to talk about vocabulary and developing vocabulary. That's an area where it's easy. Jack's caught me doing this here, right? To get too clever, okay, in the way that you talk about things. It's a term that's really cool and sexy, but it turns out that there is already a vernacular in the marketplace for that. And when you use this term, you're confusing people, and confusion is contrary to making the sale, right? And it does not imbue trust and loyalty. So we want to look at their marketing message and how they're presenting themselves, these competitors, and compare it that next to what we, i.e. you, are doing, and find our spot. We'll look at products and services that they offer. If they have keywords, if they're doing any kind of SEO or digital marketing strategy, we'll take a look at that. Their website navigation is how have they laid out their content, and what's the is there a description of what they do? Do they have a real brief description, these folks? Because when we set ourselves up there, we may be direct competitors, but we have to differentiate, right? What are we going to own in that marketplace? And so our description has to be just right in there. And then we look at their brand identity element, their tagline, their color schemes, and so forth, and all part of understanding what our unique position is in the marketplace. Then we develop branding things. This is an interactive process. I want to make that clear also when we do this. It's frequently, you may be able to do this internally, but when we do it, the reason that people come to us for it is the benefit of an outside objective expert who looks at these things from, can juxtapose your business acumen, give you a frank and evaluation and observations based thereupon, juxtaposed against 25 years in our case of digital acumen. But we work with you to create these brief, internally focused 5 to 7 words, memorable statements defining your offering, your culture, and your desired client-employee experience. Now, I want to tell a story about this because it's one of the things that made me a loyalist here when this was first presented to me. One of the first clients I got to work with was a large regional landscaping care company, one of the first back in 2010 when I first joined Webolutions. And we did this market positioning exercise for them. And we did the brand rollout. They invited us to come stand in front of their seasonal employees. The landscaping business here in Colorado pretty much goes from March to October. And so we're doing this in early March as they're getting ready to roll out and go be in the field for this company. It's a few hundred people they're assembled. These are seasonal workers. And our CEO, John Bahalik, who founded the company 25 years ago, stood in front of these people, and he says, your leadership has defined your desired client, customer, and employee experience as we make your life more enjoyable. There was nothing about lawns, nothing about trees in that statement. We make your life more enjoyable. That's their purpose. That was what they wanted from people to take away from them, be they an employee, be they a client, be they a vendor, a partner, whatever it is. How can we make your life more enjoyable? Was how they started answering the phone, which I thought was pretty smart. So so we roll this out, and John puts out to those there assembled. He says, "What does that mean to you about your job? We make your life more enjoyable." And there was a pause, some silence, and finally a guy stood up and he looked at the president of the company standing over there, and he said, "Now I understand why I got reprimanded for not putting on my paper booties before I walked into that customer's house." The other guy said, "Yeah, I was thinking the same thing." And he said, "There's nothing in my job description necessarily. I know I got to finish this job in a certain amount of time, and I got to get to the next job on time. And I just thought that maybe I could cut some corners by doing that, by not worrying about if we left piles of twigs or maybe empty plastic water bottles around the lawn. Now I understand that if my job is to make your life more enjoyable, I just can't do that. I have to make the extra effort, or we have to incorporate it into our time. We don't leave our customer's property until we've left it clean and in an enjoyable space." Then a guy raises his hand and says, these are all guys, he raises his hand and says, "You know what, if my job is to make people's life more enjoyable, then when I hang the bill on the doorknob, I can drop some hard candy in the bag so there's some sweet with the sour. Yeah, we can bring treats to the dogs." Now the ideas are flying. And afterwards, the president of the company came up to our CEO. He said, "I've been trying to tell these guys for years that your job is more than what it says in your job description, and I couldn't get it through, and you just did it in a few words." I heard that in it. So a little thanks for letting me share that with you. Finally, because we process information emotionally, and it's an emotional connection that we make, and more on this to come. We establish what your key emotions are. So when people do business with you, when they read your content, when they arrive at your website, what emotions should that convey, right? When I get on your website, what do you want me to feel about you? And there's more to this grid. This is the upper quadrant of it. There is a lower quadrant that deals with negative emotions, but pretty much everybody who's on this webinar is gonna want to something in this quadrant to be conveyed from your messaging. And if you ever slip into politics, that may change. All right. We also take a look at keyword strategy. Now, I want to preface this by saying that I'm going to move out for a moment here of market positioning. This is an important part of your website, but we do look at keyword strategy as part of it. And the reason we look at keyword strategy is for these things. It's going to influence how we lay out the information on your website. The internet is a big file directory. That's all the world it is, all right? Some of us are old enough to remember paper files, right? My first job when I was 12 years old was to come to the insurance office that my parents owned, and I would file. There was a big stack of stuff, and it was all alphabetized, and okay, go put this and, this over there, and then there was another list of things. You go pull these files and take to those people. And so the way that information is organized, all the internet is. Your website is a file, right? Your web page is a file. Every page on your website is a file. Every picture is a file. That's all the internet is, a humongous filing cabinet. And Google is the world's best administrative assistant. You say, hey, Google, go get me the Henderson file. Google says, yep, here's every Henderson file that's ranked in order of my belief they're relevant to you. You say, okay, Google, let me give you some more information so you can rank them a little better. And the more information you can Google, the more particular you get, the better Google is able to position all that stuff for you. So that's how that works in a nutshell. It also influences your user experience for your website, your navigation scheme, and even your search engine optimization strategies. So all these things come into it, and there's some offline stuff that we may get into here that it influences as well. So we do look at keywords, and that's an important part. Just because search is so prevalent and early as part of the decision-making experience. And once upon a time, if you've ever taken a marketing class, and I know a lot of you have, Porter's five forces, right? And there's these competing deals between the power of the provider and the power of the consumer. In our world, the balance of power has shifted irrevocably to the consumer, and I think it's a very good thing, right? Because we have things like social media where we can go and get recommendations from people who know us personally. We can do Google researches. We can look at reviews for the company. We can research this stuff and make our own decision. More to come on that later. We might then move into a brand platform and either create one, or if and sometimes we get to work with clients who bring this stuff. We've already done this work. It's great, which expedites our process. But these are prerequisites, right, for having a differentiated brand experience on your website. What are these? The thing that I'm showing on the right is the thing that's highlighted in blue on the left because it's just the most visual part of it. But core brand themes as established in market positioning, your brand attributes. I even wrote down the definition so I was sure not to mess this up. We as people seek out affinity. We naturally want to relate to things. We want to do and understand things that relate to us. And what do we relate to is people with human qualities. Think about how we relate to our animals, our dogs at home, right? Jack and I live here in Colorado. Everybody here has at least 2 dogs. It's like in the Constitution. If you're going to live in Colorado, you have a dog or 2, because otherwise the dog is lonely. But how do we talk about our dogs? We say they're smart. We say everything that we do, we relate to. We look at it in terms of how it relates to us and its human qualities. So a brand attribute is simply a set of characteristics that identify the physical character and personality traits of a brand, similar to the attributes that allow us to consistently identify individuals. Examples of brand attributes might be that might describe your company: business-minded, experienced, confident, collaborative, caring. And if you're one of our clients working in the ERP space, thank you very much for allowing us to do this using your messaging hierarchy and those brand attributes for you. We have your voice and tone. Consistency in voice and tone on your website and across all of your communications. I'm talking the way you answer the phone, the way you conduct yourself in a sales meeting. If you have a print flyer, anything like that, the voice and tone needs to be clear and consistent. It shouldn't be in the CEO's voice when he writes an article versus the content strategist's voice versus your voice if you write a blog post. There are standards behind which this gets developed, and it creates consistency and trust in doing that. Your voice and your tone. How do you talk to you? Are you familiar? Are you silly? Are you serious? Are you professional? Are you sassy? Are you cool? How do we talk to people? Do we talk to people in the first person, the second person, or do we refer to people in the third person? And these are all decisions that get made and implemented across your messaging strategy, especially. And I expect, well, relevant to this webinar and the content of this webinar, especially on your website. Your vocabulary. Starbucks was my example earlier, right? A grande, a venti instead of a small or a large, a barista instead of a clerk or a server. Those kinds of things, right? Do we our brand vocabulary, and what do we refer to our people? Do we have employees? Do we have team members? Are we consultants? So that we're clear and consistent in how we refer to people. What's our brand vocabulary? How do we refer to ourselves, to each other, to our programs, to our products, clearly and consistently? A content strategy. What are our overarching your content? I wrote this down too. Your content is what your audiences will see when they visit your website, what they interact with in social media, and what they will receive in your regular emails to them. So across your communications. This is the manifestation of your brand platform in terms of knowledge, your brand experience, and your opportunity to demonstrate your thought leadership. Last month's webinar was about thought leadership, and if that's of interest to you, and why not, we'll make sure that everybody who signed up for this webinar gets a link to it, so you can go back and watch it as your leisure. But a content strategy doesn't influence social media. It also influences what words and other content, pictures, and so forth go on your website. You've got imagery standards down there at the bottom as well. Messaging hierarchy, as I say, that is an example of a completed messaging hierarchy. Over there on the right, your why is up top. There's your offering. In this case, our client insight and solutions to maximize enterprise application outcomes. And if anybody out there is struggling with Oracle ERP or NetSuite or just needing some more help with that, I've got a heck of a referral for you. And we believe that column, that row that we believe is always a better way, would be your reasons to believe, and then your supporting rationale. So this brand platform becomes a Bible, the go-to standard for anybody who is developing content, and it's going to heavily influence how you differentiate your brand experience on your website to help your website do the job you want it to do, which is to convert your visitor into a lead for you. And I'll mention finally your brand mantra, which is simply a one-page statement that reflects your messaging, your brand attributes, your brand voice, and vocabulary. It's a summary, essential. But it's a quick at a glance. Okay, I'm going to write something. Where does it need to come out? Or hey, I wrote this article. Let me put it up against the brand mantra and see if it's consistent. And if we do that, then you're locked and loaded, and there's a lot less work to do on the cleanup. How am I doing on time?
So we've got 20 minutes left.
Oh my goodness, we went way long. Let's take some questions. I see we've got some questions coming in. I'm going to just stay here. Sorry, guys. All right, so here's the first question. How much time is required to complete market positioning? Ordinarily 30 days, but it's a flexible interactive process. I think 30 days because it's you need to be involved in it, and it's our schedule and it's your schedule to get it through. Ordinarily, people want to get through it deliberately, meaning thoroughly, but very quickly, and we stay flexible on that. Thanks for asking. Can you just send me a list of questions that I can answer? Okay. All right. Fair question. We can do that, right? My sister-in-law, I'm going to bring this back, right? She's a restaurant owner, and she made her way up through being a server. She was a cocktail server. And she will tell you, if you go apply for a job with her, she will tell you that she's got a philosophy, that there is a big difference between being a server and being an order taker, okay? If we send you a list of questions, or if you take a list of questions and you answer them, okay, well, you've solved for X in the equation. You basically said, okay, we fit into this box. The benefit behind going through an interactive process like this is that insights and observations and recommendations come out that would not have occurred to you otherwise if we were just answering a multiple choice test. And if you're looking at how society is viewing these things, I mentioned that I used to work in education. I still follow the industry, and one thing that I noticed, this came out like a few weeks ago, or it's been going on for a while, but there was something in the news about it a few weeks ago, that a lot of colleges are no longer accepting SATs or ACTs. Why? Because it's multiple choice. Because it shows you that I know how to answer the question, I know how to take a test, but it does not tell you how you're going to function in the university's case as a member of our community. It doesn't tell you anything about the person, and so it's incomplete. And they found that it does not, that success on those tests, the ability to answer those questions does not translate into success on their programs. And the same is going to be true if you treat these things like a multiple choice test. So it's an interactive process, and I strongly encourage you to approach it that way. One more question. If I'm not interested in SEO, do you still do keyword research? Great question. It's a common question. Yes, I'll tell you why. Because it tells us how how the market is playing out, right? How it works in somebody's mind when they do a Google search. Sometimes we can take those and give you terms that you might trademark, or name a program after. Things like that. You might incorporate that into your brand of vocabulary, even if scoring online or digital advertising is not something that is of interest to you. We just wouldn't say, let's spend money on search engine optimization. In that case, you move on to a different recommendation. Okay, sorry about going long, guys. I'm going to try to pick up the pace here and move on. We'll try to get some more questions. I see them coming. We'll try to get some more questions here at the end. We're going to talk about how to capture more leads and clients. Okay, growing sales through differentiating your brand experience on your website. I want to make sure we talk about growing sales, and time permitting, I'm going to take you through it. Admit that I'm going to take it a little bit off the website here, off the website. Conversion funnel elements that are on your website: direct calls to action and indirect calls to action. Last month we gave an example of this from our own website. If you go to our homepage, you can talk to somebody right now, or you can download a white paper. And Jack's going to send you a couple of free white paper links in the follow-up to all these things. But direct and indirect calls to action. So let's say 20% of people are ready to talk to you right now. Great. What do you do with the 80% that aren't? How do you keep them? How do you nurture that relationship? How do you and present yourself? How do you get another bite at that apple and develop that relationship? Your internal linking strategies. More for an SEO deal, but it is something that pulls, strategically done. If I land on a page, internal linking strategies can help pull my visitor through the website, through my process. Our content generation, content marketing strategies, we've talked about that a little bit. Certainly part of your conversion funnel. We've got some marketing managers on the webinar, so I won't belabor the point. You probably already know this, but there's a buyer's journey. There's awareness, there's consideration, and there's determination, right? Where I'm making a decision. I got a problem. How do I solve this problem? What's different ways that I solve this problem? Okay, I've chosen how I'm going to solve this problem. I'm not going to do it myself. I'm not going to do it myself. I'm going to hire somebody. Okay, I'm going to hire somebody. Who should I hire, and on what criteria, and so forth, right? Along that journey. So you create content to speak to all parts of that, ideally. But you start at the stage that's going to deliver you the most return on investment the fastest. And automated responses and notifications. I want to make sure we talk about this, right? And the reason I want to make sure we talk about this is because we told you we would talk about reaching the right people at the right time with the right message. Okay, your website isn't going out there, standing in the corner of a and saying, hey, come on in here, guys. It is there. Your digital advertising, your search engine optimization, your other outreach, top of funnel stuff might be pulling people through in to talk to you. But what's that follow-on look like? What's the nurturing look like? And this is my latest soapbox to jump on, if you will, is once upon a time, marketing automation was the purview of the enterprise. It is not that way anymore. And so marketing automation for your small businesses is something you need to consider. The systems, the platforms have been scaled to work for small business. They are much more affordable now than they have been prior to a few years ago, and the adoption level is increasing. All right, so it is quickly becoming, if it is not already, a prerequisite to have some sort of automation. And what you'll find when you start working in marketing automation is that it is remarkable in the way that it can make your operation more efficient. Not just in terms of going out to your clients, but in the way you work internally. It can be transformational for your business. But from a sales and marketing standpoint, the reason this is essential is so I come to your website and I fill out a form and I say, I want to contact you. I'm just using our sales model here because we're a consultative business, right? You can't just like order up a product on our website. We have to talk to you first. So inertia, the laws of inertia, right? I want to say this is the Galileo, but I could be wrong about that. An object at rest will remain at rest. An object in motion will remain in motion until acted upon by an outside force. So I believe that if I'm sitting there Googling and doing research online and I say I want to contact you and I fill out the form and I submit, that I'm going to go right until something interrupts me. I'm going to keep in motion. I'm going to keep doing the exact same thing. I'm going to keep researching. I'm going to keep contacting competitors, and it's your job to stop me from doing that, right? And the way you do that is by you get me on the phone, right? You interrupt this thing, and you also have some automation that does some other things, right? The reason you do this is because lead quality degrades rapidly over time. The quality of a web lead after an hour is like worth 30% of what it was when it first came in. And if you do the research on this, the follow-up, there's a lot of opportunity for those who do the follow-up quickly. You want attention, share, and engagement. So if I submit the form and I get automatically I get an email from you, I'm taken to a page which says, hey, we create this great content. Here's our ebook that we wrote. Here's the benefit of that. I'm ham-handing the messaging for you here, but read our blog, whatever. It grabs you an opportunity for some more engagement. Do that right away. Don't wait for somebody to get back to the desk. Have an automated system that just does that and pulls people in. Here's some good news. That person who contacted you is about 57, 58% of her way through deciding. You're on the short list, okay, if they've contacted you most of the time. You're not competing against the rest of the world. You're now competing against a very small number of other people for that piece of business. And 35 to 50%, depending on your industry of the sales, go to the first responder. Automation, right? If you can automate and grab that person and take that and take the burden off of somebody getting back to the desk, making the phone call, bridge that gap, your odds of success go straight up, and you link this right to your website so that that conversion form converts, it goes right into your system, and it's part of your website experience. And while these are prerequisites, it remains a good opportunity within that content to differentiate your overall brand experience, right? Because they're looking at how you respond, how quickly do you respond, how quickly do your competitors respond. These are how we're being evaluated and measured. So faster is better. That's an oversimplification, but here we are. CRM marketing automation, just to continue on this very quickly. We want to create personalized journeys. A little more time. We want to create some personalized journeys, right? We talked about differentiating your brand experience. We talked about developing those personas. So we should understand who's coming and who we're talking to and what they want. And what today's tools, even available for small business, enable us to do, is to speak directly to your need and try to understand exactly who you are and convey, we understand what you're trying to get done here. I understand your problems and I can help you, and here's how we might do that. We're going to be the guide who calls you to action, gives you a plan. We're going to automatically capture your prospect information, should expedite your velocity through your funnel and increase your close rate. I'm not going to go into this because we're of time, and this is well beyond our website, but it is part of your brand experience. We talk about these journeys, and I want to show you an example of what we're talking about, sort of. This is kind of hard to show on a webinar, so Jack and I said, how are we going to do this, and this is what we came up with. This is an example. So we use a CRM and marketing automation called Infusionsoft. We are an Infusionsoft certified partner here at Webolutions. And this is an example of a campaign that Jack created, right? Yep. All right. Okay. So I'm very fortunate, right, to have this kind of support. So all of this stuff, these all look like different stages. This was done with a whole lot of drag and drop. Drag and drop. Drag and drop.
A lot of copying too, yeah.
And a lot of copying, right? So and there's some hard work on the upfront. Oh yeah. Okay. And then you tweak it, just like anything else. To take us just inside here, at any within that second thing, tag apply, email campaign intro, within that. So this is what's going on inside of that. Now here's the trick, right? This looks like a whole lot of stuff and a lot of processes. If it's automated, it's just happening. In an offer of ability, you're either not doing this and losing sales, or you are doing this manually and taking a lot of time to do this and missing some steps and missing some opportunities and not closing that gap. Strongly encourage everybody to take a look at marketing automation. Okay, hey, before we get to the offer, we do. I feel like I talk too fast, but that gives me a little bit of time. I was going to show you a website example. Should I do that? I should show you a website example. I tell you what, why don't I take some questions first? Here's a question that came in. Can you work with my current website? I want to qualify my answer to this. We get this question a lot, and I understand you want to protect the investment that you've made in a website. First of all, there's a question that came in earlier about how long should I expect my website to last. Generally speaking, your website partner should advise you that you're probably going to need to replace your website in 3 to 5 years. Why? Because the world changes, right? Somebody's going to invent a smartphone, and that's going to be the way that 80% of people consume their initial traffic. So we're going to need to have mobile websites. It's going to be mobile responsive. It's going to have to appear perfectly and give a different experience, not just size down, but a navigable experience on a mobile device. High definition television is going to come to the United States and be invented, and all of our screen sizes are going to shift from a 4:3 ratio to a 16:9 ratio, and your website's going to need to follow suit in order to convey a good brand experience. Things are going to happen, right? Right now, we are within the last several months, we started developing websites with voice search in mind, because the way that you type into Google is very different than the way you ask Siri or Alexa or your Google Assistant to help you, and full sentences versus staccato keywords. And so these are the changes in the world that just kind of happen, and your website's going to need to roll with it. Now, can you work with my current website? Here's what I'm going to say. If it's a functional problem, it's very difficult for a programmer who didn't build the website to go reverse engineer your code. Nobody's ever happy on either end, on any end, about how that works out. It's extremely difficult to do. Not impossible, but you're almost always better off building a new website that does what you need it to do and reflects your brand and your imagery. That's almost always a better way to go in the end than trying to salvage your current website. Having said that, I certainly understand. And we just built this, 6 months ago, and we want to use it. So it's not a no, but it depends on what you're trying to get done. And what we would do is audit the website before we gave you a yes or a no. How frequently should I plan to redesign my website? Okay, we talked about that. What marketing automation systems do you recommend? I mentioned Infusionsoft, but I'll say this about CRM, contact relationship management, and marketing automation. It's like all tools. You get into it, what you put out, what you get out of it. Okay, so I wrote a thesis on this. I strongly recommend that before you invest it, you do some internal investing in it, you do some internal research, and you get buy-in from the people that you are going to depend on making it work. Usually that's your sales staff, your internal marketing staff, and you say, here's what we want from this, here are your goals, what do you need to help your goals get done? And then you say, is this system going to help you do that? Are we going to use it, right? Salespeople are notorious for not liking CRM systems, or not using CRM systems because it requires a little bit of effort. But those of us who do use it outperform those who don't. All right, and I'll just say it that way. And you're talking to a guy who uses his every single day, and I am the guy who gets the calls about, well, you're the first one to call, so you get the advantage. And lots of comments about our professional follow-up, but it's not because Mike is so smart. it's because we have a good system, and maybe because my supply. Yeah. All right, that's a few questions. What do we have?
A couple minutes left.
We had a couple minutes left. Okay, I need to give you the offer for this month. We talked about market positioning. We have a system. We call it Market Positioning Action Plan. The elements that I went through are what is included in those, as well as a data-driven action plan. So at the end of that exercise, we give you the data that came out of it, and we say, here, based upon is, do we need to do a new website? Does it need to have SEO on it? Should we launch this go-to-market campaign, et cetera? And we put that against your budget. We prioritize accordingly. A free website evaluation, that's always available for y'all. You can always schedule an appointment with me or give me a call, and we can walk through that. And then a keyword and competitive strategy. I did not get to go all the way through this for the time that we have, but in market positioning, we do initial keyword research with you, and then when we go to build your website, we do a full-blown keyword strategy, and we've got a very differentiated way that we do that because we have digital data, and we know this business, and you know your business. We're never going to know it as well as you are, no partner is. So you're going to have information like, you know what, I see that you've said that that's the way to go because of the search data that we can score there earlier. We would rather, you might say, do the harder work to try to score for this term or for that term because it's higher margin, because our systems, our history says that when we sell this, people buy more stuff. Something like that. So so there's business stuff that's not going to get reflected in his digital data, and we want to take you all the way through that so that the stuff that we do is impacting your bottom line and differentiating your brand experience on your website. Next month, May 29th. May 29th, same time, same channel, so to speak. We will be talking. We've talked a little bit about data today. We'll be diving deeper into it and doing more exploration. Look, big data was pretty hot about 5 years ago, and everybody wanted more data. Now what we hear from everybody is there's way too much data. How do I make sense about all this data that I have? And that's what we'll talk about, right? How to choose the information, the metrics that you need that are meaningful for you, and they're going to impact your business, and how to measure them and put them to work. So effectively using data to optimize your marketing funnel is the working title that we have for that. It will be Wednesday, May 29, 2019, noon to 1 Mountain Time here in Denver. I will leave you with the offer. Thank you for joining us. 12:59. Not bad. Not bad. All right, I got some stuff out. I wanted to show you a website example. I ran out of time. You don't have to take the offer to call me or schedule an appointment. You're welcome to do that anytime through that information. 303-300-2640 is the number here at Webolutions. You can always email me at info@webolutions.com, and that information will also be in the emails that we follow up. It has been my pleasure to be with you here today. We covered a lot in a short amount of time. I appreciate you being here with me. If you joined late, I know a number of you did. That's okay. Here in a few hours, a couple hours, we'll have an email out to you that has a full recording of the webinar. If you ever have any questions, if we can ever help with anything at Webolutions, I would appreciate a call. My name is Mike Hanberry, I'm Director of Business Development at Webolutions. My colleague and Jack, thank you for joining us, and have a great day. Go own something.